It's all I've ever known. Well, it was all I ever knew. But lately, there has been dubiety as to the state of our survival ongoing. The thicker air above us whistles with intent. Something malignant hurtles towards our home, and we are powerless to stop it. Every day, the winds whistle harder. It's always been a quiet home we've lived on. But the air is showing us promise that that will no longer be the case. I can feel my shell hardening every day. My mother is worried. I release a shrill cry. I get a better picture of my surroundings. There's a lot more movement today than there was yesterday, or at any point in time since I've been born. My mother tells me that we're not very social. We like our space, but only seem to resort to communal activities if the occasion so arises, or if one of us needs help. The occasion usually arises when slammers are around. They're much larger creatures, and their maws are endless, it seems. Whenever they hunt one of us, or they've caught one of us, we hear the slamming noise of their teeth and jaws slamming shut. My mother describes them as animals having more than 100 feet. She says their bodies can be in more places at once. I never understood her description until I heard them for myself. When I was younger, I had my first run-in with one of these monsters. Luckily, my mother was there to teach me the lesson. She told me to lie still. Our bodies have been designed to feel just like the rock around us, so when we curl up and lay as still as possible and close all of our scales together, we look just like our environment, which makes it harder for the slammers to detect us. Every time we go out to hunt, it's a risk, because we have to hunt on the hunting grounds of the slammers. Whenever one of us goes out to hunt, that's when the slammers feed. We are their only food source. At least that's what Mother says. I heard the gargantuan creature, but as it lazily ambled forward, closer to us, it sounded like its body was still moving behind it, like there were a million more of it behind it. I figured maybe my mother was confused, and maybe she thought it was only one creature, but it clearly sounded like many. She said it wasn't. It was only the one creature, with its many legs. The front end of it stopped right outside of our cave, but the rest of its body was still moving, like it was trying to catch up with it. I could feel its breath, but I could still hear the rest of its legs walking, while the front end of it was at a complete standstill. This drove fear into my heart. The back end of its body started heading for the roof of our cave, while the front end stayed at the opening, waiting for us to come out, or for some hint of movement or life. I was petrified beyond imagination at the monstrosity before me, literally above my head. I could feel its breath on me. I could hear its many hearts beating throughout its very long body. A body that I imagined split into two, or had several branches off from the main part. There was swift movement to my left outside the cave. The monster quickly diverted its attention to the movement. There was a slamming of the jaws, the squealing of one of our kind, and then silence. We waited for quite a while until the body left the area, and so did the army of its legs. That was the worst fear I ever felt in my life. But now hearing the whistling impending doom above us, something that my mom is even more afraid of than the slammers, makes me feel as though my fear was misplaced before. I hear my mother calling me with her fast trills. In the midst of us hunting our prey, quick, able-bodied creatures that stand very tall, but have several legs above their body and below it, panic breaks out amongst our kind. They all start screaming and running in one general direction. I am of a good size now, but my mother is still much larger than I am. She covers more ground than I could ever cover. I leap, trying to increase my stride, trying to keep up with my mother and the rest of our kind. And that's when I hear it, a swiftly approaching mass above us, parting the air. I can feel the pressure. It's harder to move, it's harder to run. I try to look up, to see if I can smell what's coming, to see if I can better hear. All I hear is my mother telling me to close my ears tight. Temptation is too strong. It's way too strong. I open them for a second, and I hear the piercing noise of the whistling coming towards us. I'm almost debilitated with how much it hurts my insides, shaking my entire core, rending it asunder. I fall to the ground in a heap, trying to make myself tighter, hugging myself as best as I can. I hear my mother stop. It's hard to hear anything with this horrible piercing noise and this great mass of whatever this entity is approaching us. My mother is calling out to me. It hurts. The sound, the noise, it hurts so much. I can't call out to her. I try. On the wind, I can hear her say, "Close your ears. Close them tight. Never open them." So I close them, but even still, I can still discern the noise. It's piercing. I tense the muscles of my inner ear tighter to try and shut out all the noise. But even still, it is so great, so piercing, that it penetrates my entire body. All around me, I can hear the other adult species screaming in terror and exclaiming in shock at whatever is about to hit us, or kill us, or eat us, or whatever is happening. "The mouth! The mouth!" one cries. "Behold, it is the fist of God," cries another's. And just like that, there is the mightiest and loudest sound, an explosion that I've never heard, louder than anything I ever thought possible, that goes off. My body shakes, is flung this way and that. I'm powerless to stop it. There's a deep groaning and cracking in the earth beneath me. I can no longer feel any ground beneath me, as a matter of fact. I am floating. I hit into another body. A slammer, maybe? Something big, something with chittering legs. The slammer. It is one. It's lifeless. The legs, the chittering, it starts to slow down, starts to quiet, decrease in decibel until it's no more. I don't detect it anymore. It's floating away from me. I hit into another body. Is it my mother? No, it's another one of me. It's moving. This one has life. He holds on to me, and I hold on to him. For a while, we are both floating. The only time I've ever felt something like this was in the thick, gooey liquid that Mother told us not to play in a long time ago. But here, there is no liquid. There's no substance. There's nothing I can stand on or grasp besides the body next to me I'm hanging on to. We're both spinning aimlessly. And after a few moments, there is no sound. There's no air. There's no pressure, but yet there is pressure all around us. It's surreal. I've never felt anything like this, and this is impossible. What's happening? I hear him say. The body. Yes, I forgot. There's something next to me. I'm hanging on to it, and he's hanging on to me. Both of us spinning. The spinning never stops. We keep spinning. It's disorienting, it's jarring, not knowing which way is up. We always know which way is up. It's one of the best things that Mom taught us. I can't think. My mother. I know she's all right. She taught me to be strong. She said that if we ever got separated, our family and the rest of us would be all right. We learn really early. It's just that it's better, safety in numbers, in case the slammers would get us. But the only last slammer I've seen is now dead, or at least I presume so. I don't know where we are. I don't know what is happening. But the spinning never stops. The air is gone. And then after a while, I can sense my partner's mouth or body moving. I know he's making noise, but I can no longer hear it. I can't even hear myself. There's no sound. It's so odd, as an individual, as a species that prides themselves on silence, for me to feel totally terrified by this unreal silence I'm experiencing now. It's unlike silence I've ever heard. Growing up, silence is never total silence. Silence was heavy silence. It taught us what was around us. The silence was the base foundation for how we navigated our world. The silence was what we based that off of. If something was overlaying the silence, that's how we would decipher what it is. For example, the chittering legs and the heavy breathing on the backdrop of silence is a slammer. The wet licking and the sound of scales dancing, apprehensively listening for oncoming predators. Well, that's the sound of a chiant, one of the many things that we eat and feed on. Our delicacy, however, are the mambakwes. The mambakwes are like the chiants, but they're much larger, and instead of having legs above their bodies and below their bodies, they have it on all sides, with sharp piercing spikes from out of every direction. It is a challenge to eat one of these, but with the succulent meat inside, so sweet, the best thing we've ever tasted out of anything else we've eaten. They sure are worth it, and you are seen as a true warrior if you can bring one of these down and take it home to your family. But when we hear the swishing, when we hear the rapid slamming of its jaws, smaller than our jaws, but much more powerful, the clawing of the air, the sound the air makes when they cut through it, we know what they are. It's how we identify everything. It's a beautiful world with so many sounds and different music. But to not hear anything at all, not even the silence that we're used to, it's very jarring and unnerving. I thought silence was the absence of other organisms making sound, but that was never true silence. True silence is, well, whatever this is. Maybe this is something more sinister than silence. I can feel the partner who's attached to me hugging me closer. I can feel his fear. Suddenly, we both hit into something hard. We stop spinning. For the first time in what seems like forever, we both grab onto it and realize it's a much larger chunk of rock. The rock is spinning as well, and there's bits of it coming off. I'm surprised to realize that this rock, whatever it is piece of the ground we were just on, or at least something similar to it. A sharp claw taps on the side of my body. It taps twice, then a few times, then makes a circle on my body and taps again. I realize what this is. Thankfully, my mother had taught me this other language early on. There's a tribe of our kind that has a specific predator that hunts them, and the predator identifies where they are because of the sound that they make. However, as they explained it, there are several falling rocks and objects in their wherever it is they come from. So to hide from their predators and to also imitate the rocks falling all around them, they make tapping noises with the tips of their claws on each other in order to communicate. The scraping noises and the shapes being drawn on our bodies is to emulate rocks falling down and scraping against the surface as they head down. The tapping noises are, of course, the rocks hitting other rocks. I was one of the few that understood this tribe's language. She's telling me that we're no longer on land. We're in the heavens. I'm better at understanding the tribal rock language than I am at actually speaking it, but I make an attempt, and I ask her where everyone else is. I hear her shift her weight, and then she taps on me again, then taps on my head, and then makes a circular motion and a long line down my back. I take that to mean that they've fallen away, and that all of us have fallen away from everything, whatever that means. But if we've fallen away from everything, where are we going? The way that she explained it, and the way that the scholars explained it, is that we live on an ever bigger rock that's always growing and always moving, but we can't see where it's going. This really big rock is very, very large, larger than we can ever fathom. The scholars had told us that since there is a big rock here, then there must be an animal or something like us that sees it as a small rock, the way that we look down and see rocks as small rocks. To us, this big rock is another creature's small rock. That scares me, to be honest. I wake up with a start. I can feel pressure on me. I can hear my kind speaking again. I can feel the air. It's tangible. Yes. I open up my ears and I hear a very stark whistling sound, similar to what it sounded like before I got blasted off of my land. Through the excruciatingly loud sound of air resistance, the other individual who had been holding on to me for the better part of our journey called out and said we're about to land. Land where, I wondered. Wherever this is, I'm about to find out. I spread my whole body to grasp on as tightly as I can to this falling rock. I emit clicks to try and find out where I am, but all around me is just fast-moving air. The rock that we're all holding onto is tumbling like mad. I just now realized how many of us are on it. Using my sonar, I can detect that it goes on for at least about 10 strides, maybe more like 40. The sound of us hurling through the air picks up, and just before I feel like I'm going to go deaf, there's another huge explosion. My body is sent flying into whatever direction. To my horror, I think that I'm off, tumbling aimlessly again in this horrible place that is more silent than silence itself. The death of silence. I never want to go there again. But before I can even get to that point in my mind, I come to a stop. That's what that smell is. The burning. The burning as we cut through the air. Because the air was so thick and we were moving so fast, everything lit up with the burning. My mother called it the hairy star because, well, it was hot and bright like stars, but it was hairy based on the way it whipped the air. We loved playing in it. It's something that we always enjoyed. It was like a pastime. But just remembering this stuff makes me think about my mother and wonder where she is. If several of us came over on this rock, then she could be here too. I call out for my mother, but I'm met with nothing but not silence. Something else. Wherever I am, I'm no longer home. That weird tribe individual was right. I know that there's been a great passage of time because I'm significantly bigger than I was when I left. My legs are longer, my voice deeper, and my hearing more sure. I'm still confused. All around are alien noises. I can hear something familiar, the clicking of my comrades. Have any of you found my mother?
Is that seriously your concern, dumb female? We need to get home,
yells out an old one.
We don't even have the slightest clue in what direction that is,
cuts in my partner. We never knew each other back home. The only time I met him was when we were on the rock. Well, she's very smart, so if we find her, she could help us get home, I say to the grumpy one.
How many of us are here? I think that's the first thing we should figure out,
chimes in an older female. Everyone, click. We all do what she says. This lasts only a little while. It makes me so happy and relieved to know that there are actually more of us who made it here than I initially thought.
So, roughly 800. This is disastrous. We have to assume that we're going to stay here for a very long time. Where exactly is here? Asks my partner. Who are you? It's difficult to sign you.
Retkin Osolin, he answers proudly. He should be proud. He comes from a good line of warriors.
Retkin, I don't know, but it's not the same rock that we hail from. So are you saying that we traveled through the great dark? Asks another old one nervously. Yes, answers the old female.
Now how do you know that for sure?
Asks the old grumpy male from earlier. I hear the older female turn to face him. She walks towards him, and I can tell from her position and from her clicking, and his, that she is much taller. My climb keeps growing the older they get.
I don't, but based on the research we've done for many centuries, it fits the bill. In the great dark, there is no sound. You can't hear anything from there, can you? What we can't hear is the hum of our land. We never paid attention to the song that it played because we grew up with it. It was part of our natural environment, the cadence of everything around us, of every life form. It was a part of us. It was a part of how we identified who we are and where we're from. But listen, friends.
All of us fall silent and listen to our alien surroundings. She's right. It sounds nothing like home. It feels so wrong.
Do you hear that? We are clearly not where we started.
We're all talking in unison until we hear noise, and it picks up in decibel very quickly. When it finally gets close enough overhead, the sound it makes is excruciating. It picks up in decibel similar to how the impending doom sounded.
We all scatter and grab our heads in agony. All of us yell with the desire to make it stop. Some of the individuals leap into the air, trying to kill whatever it is.
Stop, you fools! It's too far up in the sky, whatever it is, but it's leaving now,
yells the group's old male. He's right. The loud noise leaves. Based on its sound print, the object is hard in nature and has 2 long appendages sticking out from either side of its body. It's much larger than we are, and whatever makes the noise is coming from its appendages. How can something that flies so high be so loud, I ask?
That's not important,
yells a female who seems to have assigned herself as her leader.
We need to assimilate,
she orders. We start to head in the same direction of the female. My hearing gets better the more I develop. The only movement I can accurately identify without fail every single time was that of my mother's. I knew how her body moved through the air. I know the sound of her feet every time they would hit a surface. Of all the hundreds of individuals that were around me, I can't detect her movement. I used to think that so many walking feet around me would maybe confuse me and not make it able or easy to identify anyone. She said that when I was old enough, I'd be able to identify every single individual within a certain radius just by the way they moved through the air, even though we're all in the same area. I used to think it impossible. Now it's second nature to me, and I don't even have to try very hard. I identify every single individual behind me and to my left and my right just by focusing on their movements. Suddenly we stop. Apparently we all did because the older female did. I hear her crouch low to the ground and hiss menacingly. Many others follow her lead and do the same. Then I hear it, the focus of her aggression, the odd thing moving on a hard reflective surface.
What is it, old one?
Asks several of us. I used to wonder why so many of us spoke at once when I was younger. Now, I know. With one voice trailing off another and saying the same thing, we amplify what we've said when we can't vocalize too loudly, like an echoing wave of a whisper being sent out closer to its intended target, this being the female. It was a way we could communicate very long distances. Our minds are tuned to hear what someone asks from one direction, and then repeat the information to our nearest member in the same direction that the sound or question is meant to go. We all even have names based on our sound, our voices and clicks, and the way the little jagged edges on our body are shaped, the unique sound each of our profiles make as they comb through the air, the sound of the insides of our bodies, are all unique ways we tell each other apart. We are given names based on the noise or accompaniment our body creates. I am Huala because that's the sound my entire body makes. My mother still is, Mekmek Tikgawana. This old female is Otrek Tikmindana. I've heard tales of her, but because of many battles with slammers and toutners, her hearing is not what it once was. So understandably, some of us are dubious when we don't hear what she seems to be. But now we all do, or at least I do. There's something standing in front of us. Something alien. Little micro movements it makes gives me a better picture of what it is and where it is. Whatever it is, it's tense, and it's facing us. We stay quiet because it might pick up our movements as well. With no warning whatsoever, Otrek, the old female, walks closer to it and boldly displays aggression.
What are you doing?
I click at her harshly.
I've identified it. It's a little thing. Its body is soft. Most of my sound seems to be absorbed by it. It's also full of liquid. Maybe it's poison, says another member.
We're all beyond apprehensive. If she's right and this thing is soft, it's small, and that means it could be poisonous. We've had some of that from our home. Soft, squishy creatures that seem harmless. Many young ones have lost their lives needlessly because they ended up popping something that sprayed poison all over them, which seeped into their cracks and burned them up from the inside out. It was an agonizing death, and to everyone who was in the vicinity, their screams and their violent death throes were burned and etched into their memory. The old female makes a decision. She lets out a shriek, and it's the first time I've heard this strange alien making noise. It cries out in return. The sound is deafening. It makes me angry with how loud it is. Everything sounds so stark. Back at my home, the air was thick, but it felt soft. Sound traveled to where it needed to go and where we directed it. We adapted to survive creatures like slammers, who were adept at hearing us in the quiet. They themselves were quiet,
At least in comparison to things here.
All around me, I can feel something that I felt before, but it's odd. It's warmth. We've experienced warmth back at home, but not all the time, and not from everywhere like this. It seems as though most of it is coming from the sky, and a lot of it is being reflected from off the ground. So strange. Usually, the hairy stars or several of the creatures give off that same sensation, but not the entirety of our surroundings. It's very jarring and disorienting. On this, whatever this place is, the air is not as thick, and every sound that is made carries not in one direction or linear, but radiates outward. It's not rich, it's just striking and annoying. We have to work that much harder to detect where noises are coming from. Maybe that's why we failed initially to pick up when this alien arrived in front of us. Atrek lashed out with her huge claw, and we hear the sound of liquid falling to the ground. Nervously, we step back, thinking the poison is going to get us. Even Atrek stands still in anticipation. Nothing happens. We can hear the sound of the alien gurgling and trying to drag itself away. The noise it makes, the sound of its body dragging on whatever that hairy stuff was on the ground, is just so painful and maddening to my ears. I just want to make it stop. I yell out and head for the sound, and without thinking, I start stabbing the thing making it. The old female joins me, and we stab it together until it's still and silent. The old female clicks at me. "Do you feel anything?" "Rage," I reply. "I want to go home. It's going to take a miracle for that to happen. This thing, did it do this? Did it take us away from our home?" Retkin Osselin, the partner that I rode on the rock with here, speaks up. "Do you not see the coincidence? Something huge hits our home, which is now destroyed or at least badly damaged. Now, we're here. Whatever these aliens are did this. They did this." I think you're reaching a bit too much," I say, scoffing at him. "These things were attempting to kill us. They did not count on us landing next to them." "That could be true," cut in the old female. "Regardless, we must survive." We walk on for several paces, and what happens next is the worst nightmare of my life. We hear noises like we've never heard before. Everything is suddenly deafeningly loud. There are so many different types of alien noises, and everything was above normal decibel. We all screeched out in horror and torment. My ears ring in pain, and we all cry to make it stop. Whatever these things are, their intention is clear: to kill us. "Fight, members! Fight for your lives! They're weak!" screams the old female. Through the pain, we follow Atrek's lead. I immediately head towards every source of painful noise I detect. I cut through something hard with legs that spin noisily on a ground as hard as stone. It keeps screaming and then lets out an excruciatingly loud honking noise. I release it, but my friend Retkin jumps in to save me. He turns it onto its hard metallic back and cuts through its armor. With a gaping hole in its body, we can hear things inside more clearly. Aliens, like the ones that we detected earlier. The ones that, well, the old one and I killed. Retkin claws at them, and I hear the satisfying sound of squelching as he cuts through their soft, stupid bodies. I can hear many other aliens running, trying to confuse us with his cacophony. I feel fear, and I realize this is worse than the slammers. It's similar because there's so many of them, and they seem to be everywhere. Slammers had one body with many legs, but these things were like the slammers cut up into a million pieces, each with its own set of legs, and each piece strewn everywhere all around us to confuse us. The more of them I hear, the more I become enraged. I channel my fear into the need to survive. I run ahead and cut through as many of them as possible. I do this without cessation. I do this because the one thing my mom taught me is to survive at all costs. With this mindset and lost in my desperation, I realize that we're all standing in total silence. It's not the best silence we've had, but still it's better than what just happened. We wonder if they're all dead. As if to answer our question, we hear a wave of noise on the horizon, weird things that chop the air above as they fly towards us. "Huala, come with me!" I hear Retkin scream. The others stay and prepare to fight.
We hear noises, loud noises that sound like constant mini explosions. Redkin enters a shady area and quickly cuts up the screaming aliens inside. What sounds like two very small aliens runs above us, like there's a higher level to this cave-like structure. Huala, go get them before they alert the others. Hurry! I listen and head up this tiny strip of surface with jutting edges. I reach the higher level and halt to listen better. I am afraid, but this is life or death. I hear the little devils lying in wait of an attack. I click to get a better picture of my surroundings, and it confuses me. This structure has many open spaces, many rooms with weirdly placed things in them. I go in one, fascinated by the novelty of it, when I hear an ear-shattering slam behind me. I turn around and instantly stab whatever it is that made the sound, but all I hit is something hard. My claws go right through it, however. It wasn't there a second ago. What the heck is happening? I can't get back out the way I've come, but since my claw goes through this thin barrier pretty easily, I hack at it until I can burst through it like a baby through its metal pod. A shrill noise hits my ears. I double over in pain. It's the little things. Their screeches are more high-pitched and deadly than that of the bigger ones. I launch myself at one and pin it to what feels like a wall. The other one is getting away, so I work quickly to shut this one up. Before I can stab it, liquid pours out underneath it, and then towards me. I can taste it in the air. It's salty and pungent. I panic, thinking it's poison or something. For a moment, I release the alien minion. It scurries away downwards, probably back down to the main level. Huala, kill them! Hurry! Wait, I got this one, says Redkin. It's leaking something, I call out back to him. I'm nervous. What if it is poison? But if they get away, they'll tell the others where we are, and I'm not ready to face whatever horde lies in wait of these things. I locate the squealing and huffing vermin and chase after it. It doesn't get far. I slam into it, sending its little body flying out in front of me till it hits what I assume is another wall. I can hear squelching from my right. Redkin has killed the other one. Yes. The wet noises are intertwined with cracking noises. These things are soft, but the hardest part on their body is their head, it seems. What an odd way to have armor. Why would you only have armor in one place, on the inside of your body, but not on the outside? I can hear the alien that I slammed into the wall trying to scurry away. It falls back down in a heap. I've injured it. It makes whimpering noises. It's not just hurt. It's terrified. I don't know how I recognize that, but I do. I'm almost sure of it. This gives me confidence as I accost it. It makes a pitiful noise directed at me as if pleading or something. I take the sharp end of two of my claws, and I slowly impale its face. Gurgling is heard as it for some strange reason fights to live. I shove my claws straight through it until its entire hard-like head cracks in two. Then it is still. The full weight of its body felt hanging from my claws. Redkin and I breathe in relief. Is it over? I ask. He clicks and taps his feet, which means he doesn't know, and he's searching for more clues. Outside the shelter, with thin walls, we can hear the commotion of our kind slaughtering the pests. At least I think that's what's happening. We just listen. After some time passes, we feel the air cool. Heat isn't radiating from everything the way it was much early on. Everything is more quiet, more still. I can hear our members very far away as if they're right next to me, a skill I did not have when I was very little. Redkin, will we find a way back home? This place is not made for us, I say despondently. He doesn't answer because he doesn't get a chance to. The old female calls out to everyone in the area. We can hear her loud and clear from here, even though she is many strides and clicks away. We all give account for where we are. There is a calm silence once she's gotten all of our attention. Members, I know what you're feeling, all of you. You want to go home and escape this alien place that we've landed on. Unfortunately, we're not leaving. The events that took place, based on what little info gathering we've done since we've been here, is that a really large object, possibly a chunk of land or metal, slammed into our home rock. This caused a huge chunk of our home to break away. The force was so great that we were thrown all the way into the great dark, the place where there is no sound. We landed here, An alien place overrun by vermin parasites.
The alien things we killed, she continues.
I know it isn't exactly favorable, but this is to be our new home. There was no way of going back to the way things were. Even if we could return to our home, it would not be the same. We have to make the best of things here. But before we can do that, we have to make it livable. We have to rid it of the parasites that plague this place. Rid this place of the noise and pestilence. Everyone take a quadrant, spread out from this epicenter, and wipe till there is no more.
Retkin and I listen and trill in unison. The noise, there's so much of it, and these aliens so plentiful that it seems like an impossible task. But she's right. If we can't go back home, this is the only home we have. We'll have to make it hospitable. After being here for a while, I realized that this landscape goes through cyclical changes. There's a great deal of time where everything is bathed in heat and radiation. And then there's another time when everything is cool and more quiet. What we're used to back home. Wherever there is heat, there's movement. I don't understand why, but the intellects of my kind always assumed that there were animals that used the heat to navigate. A group of animals that did not rely on hearing, but relied on these weird holes in their heads that would suck in the light so they could tell where they are in comparison to everything else. Sounds so ridiculous. They would gather, or always gather, in these groups and theorize the craziest things, these intellects of my species. Such as, here's an example. What if there's a place where it's hot all the time and the creatures don't hear, but they use the heat to navigate? Another fan favorite was, what if there's a place where the creatures can absorb and emit sounds to navigate, but they also suck in heat and radiation through the holes in their head to navigate as well? I don't know why that makes sense to them, but the way they explain it is that it would be a way for them to map out their environment without hearing. This, of course, is alien to me, but now I'm thinking about it because much of the time this place is bathed in constant heat. Those crazy intellects could be right. After all, even though these aliens use sound, they react differently to it. Sometimes they don't make any sound, but that just could be because they're different creatures from another world who use it differently. The days are marked in our home world by the different music that is played at different times. At the start of the day, the air is heavy but moving quite fast. More music can be heard from a variety of creatures, and even still, it's so much more silent compared to this world. The ground has a completely different vibration at the start of the day on our home world than it does at the end. This world, however, radiation and heat seems to be its marker. One part of the day, the part based on heat, where there is a lot of activity, seems similar to our early part in the day on our homeworld. The part with no heat and less activity seems to be the later part. I killed my fair share of aliens. It's amazing how stupid they are and how easy they are to kill. I don't know how it's possible they've overrun this world, and it makes me wonder if members like us used to live here before they took over. They obviously are a plague. The big metal objects with the spinning legs that they usually are seen in must be the adult forms. At least that's what we guess, because they're always carrying around the aliens. They seem to only serve that purpose. Things become very noisy for quite some time. There were bigger metal things that made thunderous and ear-splitting noises when they attacked. I got hit by one. It was not fun. I was running in towards the alien noises and got hit with a huge object which sent me flying. I felt a huge vibration in my body as I hit the ground. It stung, but I got back up, wondering what was the point of what just happened. It didn't even dent my armor. Slammers back home had the jaws to split us open if they crushed us the right way. These things clearly were not predators. What I thought to be their strongest attacks did nothing to us. Well, so long as we kept our cracks tightly shut. One member opened his to expose his ears for whatever reason. When that big blasty thing hit him, I could no longer hear his body's song. Aside from that mishap I was witness to, we're all indestructible in comparison to these stupid aliens. After a while, the fear completely left me, and I made it my mission to make this world safe for us. And maybe for my mom.
if she ever gets here. It's been some time since our arrival. It didn't take long for the aliens to retreat. When they realized that there was a new predator in town, their breeding numbers decreased. Their population was decimated. We spread out far and wide to fight the plague, and we won. There are other creatures here that make noise as well, but for the most part, it was those weird initial ones. Everything here is soft. It makes them ridiculously easy to kill. We can go quite some time without food, and we're still not clear what is safe to eat here. It certainly is not the aliens. There's just too much liquid inside of them to take a risk of dying a horrible slow death from poison. As a matter of fact, most things on this weird world are filled with liquid. Redkin and I make it to an area that feels more quiet than whence we came. There are ambient noises and the sound of tiny flying creatures who make chirping noises, flooding the air. "This seems like a nice enough place to guard," he says, keeping pace beside me. "It is much quieter." "Any aliens here, you think?" I think for a while. I know we'll have to make sure it's safe. "Koala." "What?" "I know you've heard what they've been saying." "Yes, the second drop. I don't know how much of that we should believe, though, Redkin." "The theory makes sense, though. When that big thing smashed into our homeworld, it makes sense that a few chunks would have fallen off from it and not just one big one that we were on. There could be more of a kind coming on their own chunk of rock." I pause and lower myself to the ground. "Redkin, that's very hopeful and sweet, but the chances of that happening are very low. I mean, even I was very hopeful before it, but now I don't know. When something smashes into something else, whatever pieces break off do so in all directions, separate directions. And I know where you're going with this. Whatever chunk my mother is on, if she's still alive, could be heading in a completely different direction than we went. What if she wasn't even on a chunk? What if she's just floating off into the great dark?" I know this is not what he wants to hear, but it's true, and I had to come to terms with this myself. Having hope is the worst thing for us right now. Even though I do sometimes, I snap myself back to reality. We need to keep moving forward. We must leave the past behind us. I cautiously open my ear flaps. I bloom to take in as much of the surroundings as I can. I have a feeling that there are aliens here, but wherever they are, they've become proficient in keeping quiet. They're learning our ways, learning to stay undetected. This freaks me out. "What's wrong?" he asks. "I think some of them are in hiding." "Well, they won't be for long. It's one thing I've learned about these dumb pests. Sooner or later, they end up giving themselves away." I hear a sharp noise to my left. It is quick and piercing and flies through the air and disappears as soon as it was created. It's an alien. "What the heck was that?" I cried out in shock. "One of the stupid noises they make when they're trying to clear their face. The intellects say they have several holes on their bodies. Sometimes the holes get clogged, and then when it's time for them to get unclogged, apparently the aliens can't control that. Boom, we find their position." Well, I guess that theory is very probable then. For an animal that's so easy to kill, it would make sense for the predators on this world to not depend solely on sound. I don't know. Maybe they have weaker genes. The ones whose faces got clogged up the most make the most noise and get hunted as a result. Redkin seems to find this amusing, learning about these aliens. I don't see what's the point since they'll all be gone soon anyway. "Doesn't that mean the ones that are left behind are the stronger ones?" I countered. "Fair point, but the strongest ones are still very weak in comparison to us." "Koala, there's nothing to worry about." We walk for a while together and then he stops. "You heard what the old female said. We need to spread out and each have a territory to call our own. I won't be very far, though, and I can hear you from anywhere." "I know," I sigh. I don't tell him I don't want to be alone, which is a strange way to feel. We actually like our space, but in a foreign place like this, the last thing I want is to be by myself, especially now when I can hear the sound of something approaching. A hissing noise is heard, and then the telltale cries of those little aliens. I charge towards them, desperate to end their lives, but then nothing. They're gone. I listen carefully, and I know they're somewhere in the area. Before I can open my ears, something slams into my side. My body vibrates for the impact. Whatever hit me fell off onto the ground next to me. It sounded so small, and it's hard to believe that something so tiny could make such a loud noise. But that wasn't the only thing that made noise. Wherever it came from was what made the louder noise.
So I run in that direction, and I can hear the shrieking of the aliens as they flee from me. When I feel I'm in close proximity of one, which honestly doesn't take very long, I swing out my arms, and I feel my claws cut straight through soft flesh. Liquid spills, and suddenly the alien in front of me falls into 2 separate pieces. I can hear the other one fall to the ground and stay quiet. I click and listen. It's so hard to hear in this place. The air is too thin, and there are too many other sounds intermingling with what I'm trying to listen to. It's so easy to lose track of where you are, and that's why I find I have to constantly be making noise. Clicking away to find out where I am and to reacquaint myself. I can only ever picture what's right in front of me, and it drives me mad. I hear it. The sound of very light dripping, and the sound of a tiny mouth releasing sharp exhalations of air. I've come to realize that's the sound most of the aliens make when they're scared, and they know they're gonna die. It's a pitiful whimpering noise that is usually accompanied by wetness from their face. I personally have not experienced that, but I have experienced a lot of wetness coming from underneath of their bodies when I catch one of them. It's very annoying and messy. They're so disgusting, and it makes me hate them more. Why do they have so much liquid inside of them? What evolutionary benefit does that serve? Ugh! I walk slowly in the direction I guess the other one is in. Another hard impact hits me in the head and throws me for a loop. I growl and charge the dumb pest. Something metallic drops from it when I slash at it. It sounds like a long object. For a moment I'm confused. Was that a piece of its armor I just cut off? I hear to my right the alien running away. It's a distraction. Weird. Did it only have that long piece of armor in one spot rather than all over its body? So strange, these dumb things. The armor piece isn't moving, so it's easy to make up my mind as to what to pursue. It doesn't take long for me to catch up to the alien. It screams and my ears ring in pain. Shut up! I yell in fury and frustration as I slam down my powerful arms on whatever is in front of me. After 2 attempts, my claws hit something which squishes beneath me. I feel the satisfying high of the sound of nasty liquid oozing from the creature, and then the silence that follows shortly thereafter. This is my new game. It's about ousting this plague, but I'm starting to enjoy putting them out. The gratification I get from terminating them slowly becomes an addiction. Even though their sounds are grating and their presence nettlesome, I find solace and deep pleasure in feeling their bodies become undone at my claws. I have become an apex predator. No more slammers to make us afraid. No more agilons to confuse us with their mighty chattering teeth and shifting headpieces. Here, we could find rest in it all. I find a cool spot and grab onto the hard surface, which seems to be growing into the sky. It has smaller hard surfaces which branch out from it at a certain height. They get thinner the higher up I climb, and then I hear cracking. Suddenly, the branched off thing I'm on snaps and I am pulled to the ground. I fall hard. How annoying. What were you trying to do? I hear a voice ask. None of your concern, I reply, happy to hear the voice. Redkin is so far away it would take 1,800 strides to reach him, but I hear him so clear as if he's right next to me, close enough to touch. Well, Huala, sounds like you're settling in. How's the purge going on your end? I got a few. I think they're breeding. They breed fast. How do you know? How else do you explain how they keep popping up? I think the ones that we're killing, the squishy ones, are the babies. Oh, and the adults are the metal things with the spinny legs. He pauses for a beat. I think those are the egg cases, but they use them sometimes as a mean of defense, I'm guessing. I don't know. What will we hunt, Redkin? We can't eat these things. Why do you think that? All that liquid? Back home, if something is too easy to kill, it usually means bad news. Yeah, you're right. Well, I think I found something. You should come by. I nestle myself into the ground underneath me. Why should I come by? Because I might have something for us to hunt. This sparks my interest. I stand up and start walking in his direction. When I am 900 strides away, his call becomes quieter. He lets out a few clicks when I locate the epicenter of his body's song. It's annoying how loud we have to be here just to find our way around. You get used to it. It's quite ironic, though. On our world, we depended on our ability to stay as quiet as possible to avoid predators detecting us. But here, it seems the aliens have to do the same. We have become the... I cut him off and we both finished saying, apex predators. Exactly, he adds. And what's your apex predator skills telling you? What? I asked, totally confused as to his questioning. Koala, listen to the air. What am I listening for? It's faint, but you can tell when you catch it. This seems like a monumental waste of time, but I humor him. I bloom so I can hear better. My ear flaps open up slowly and cautiously. This is the most vulnerable that we'll ever be on this land. I find that we have to bloom more often on this large rock because it's so much harder to capture sound due to the air being so sparse. Boredom starts to set in until I finally catch what I believe Retkin wants me to hear. Is that? I'm guessing you got it, he says confidently. I rub his shoulder in confirmation. How is that possible? Is this where they're originally from? I was talking to another member. If we got here via a huge chunk of rock from our home, and we were talking about the possible arrival of other members on other chunks of rocks, then it only makes sense that other creatures would be riding those chunks of rocks as well. I tap my legs happily. We have food. They're not the best food, but they are the most prolific creatures on our homeworld. Cheons. Very faintly and very far away, extremely far, which is why it's so hard to hear. I detect their wet licking and the telltale sound of their scales dancing, sliding over one another to make that incessant noise we believe they use for communication. With their legs on the tops of their bodies as well as the bottom, they can cover an astonishing amount of ground in a small space of time. How far away they reckon? With the pollution of all the other noise on this weird world, it's hard to say. But based on the little increments of what I can pick up and based on the day cycle of this world, 6 days away? I hiss. Hey, at least we won't starve. He reassures me. I know. This is amazing, but how are we going to get to them? I've already passed on the message to Autrek. She's going to head over to the members out of earshot. I jump up excitedly and paw the ground in anticipation. I'm not terribly hungry right now. Not that I know of. But I will be someday. I'm used to surviving for many cycles without food. However, our need to use more energy just to navigate this world seems to be depleting my reserves. Don't get too excited. Retkin, you're a strange member. You show me something with the hope that it will get me excited, and then when I get excited, you have a problem with it? So, it's good news for now, he says, walking down a slope. But what's going to happen if there's only one of those things? We don't know how many arrived here, so like it or not, we're going to have to figure out a way to eat whatever's presented to us on this world. Even if they're poisonous? Either we build up an immunity or we find something else we can eat. We're survivors, and we pride ourselves on being able to adapt quickly to any situation. I think we'll be fine. He stops, and I can feel him shifting to face me. I can also hear him bloom, his face opening up just to slam his cracks back down and open them again in quick succession. What are you doing? I ask quizzically and amused. Koala? I want us to make a new song. Shock overwhelms me. It's the last thing I expected to hear. Why? With me? Why with me? Because I came here with you, and it's only fitting to make a new song with you. You won't be the first or the last, but you'll be one of the tops. Wow. Thanks, Retkin. Do you accept? Yes, I accept. Do we do it now? No, you're not ready. Then why did you ask me? Because I wanted to know if you'd say yes. He starts walking away. You're going after the Cheon, aren't you? We're not supposed to leave our post. You and the old grumpy member can hold it down. I'll be back soon. I'm pretty sure you can handle it. I can feel warmth emanating from him. He's pleased with me. Right then, before he takes off fully, we both pause. There's a loud, obnoxious noise being played. I point my mouth in Retkin's direction. That's all you, he quips. I flutter inside and take off in pursuit of the strange noise. I bound through the tall things that grow into the sky with the branches. I click in anticipation so I don't smash into anything. The noise becomes louder and more painful to my ears. I can sense it now. Through the tall sky climbing things that grow out of the ground. It's an alien. A very tiny one. It doesn't even run. The thing making the noise is definitely coming from the little demon. Little noises from out of him seems to accompany the even louder noise.
Everything about these things make me sick, and like the hero I've become in my own story, I leap into the air, grab the pest, and throw it as fast and as far as I can. I hear its tiny body hit one of those things growing out of the ground. I have to find a name for those things. I am able to find it very easily after that because I can hear it whimpering and gurgling. I hate those noises they make when they're dying, like they're choking on their own liquid. I stand over it, waiting for its poison to finish it off, but it takes its sweet time dying. With vicious pleasure, I take one claw and push it straight through its belly. Die! I seethe. I remove my claw, which gets stuck to something hard inside the creature. For a while, I can't remove my claw. I start shaking my arm frantically, the creature still stuck to the tip of my talon. I try to slam the alien into one of the earth necks. There's a name for them. After 3 tries, I finally wipe it off. It's still alive. How? It's making less noise every moment that passes by. I hate these things with a passion. I place my claw back inside its belly. Wait, I think this is the back end now, into which I make a new hole. Interesting. It seems to have its armor, as I previously thought, on the inside of his body, but not on the outside to reinforce it. And again, that makes no freaking sense. The fact that these things exist is an abomination. Having had enough of these stupid gurgling and wheezing noises it makes, I ball up my claws into the shape of a rock and bring them down hard on the alien. There's a piercing popping noise, as what I think is its head, or was its head, explodes from the pressure. I hear the footfalls of others, which quickly fall silent. I'm starting to get used to this place, and I now realize what my purpose is. I can't wait to do this again, and I will keep at it until this world is truly our home.